you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives, and cultures of the 13 vampiric clans in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the clan of the Hunt, the Banu Haqim, otherwise known as Clan Assamite. The children of Haqim are a distrusted clan in these modern nights. Well, all the clans have some stigma regarding their liability, but the Assamites more so than any other. They have been seen by Western kindred as dangerous assassins and diablerists, and whilst both of these statements are true, more so the former than the latter, the Assamites see themselves guardians, warriors, and scholars who seek to distance themselves from the jihad, each one with a different mindset that I will elaborate further at a narratively convenient moment. As such, they have been an independent sect through most of time, but things have changed somewhat in recent years, which I will discuss when I reach that point in our discussion. First, we begin with their origins, to better understand why our society sees them the way they do. There are a handful of stories regarding the Assamite antediluvian and his subsequent childer. Some 10,000 years ago, there were hunters who followed the migrations of animal herds across the Fertile Crescent into Asia and North Africa. A certain warrior hunter, soon to be known as Haqim, migrated with the herds and had dedicated himself to scholarship during his venture. He learned to read, write, and speak the language of the dead. This attracted the attention of one of Cain's childer, Zillah. Being eligible for the embrace, this warrior hunter would take on the name Haqim and would reluctantly become the judge of the Cainites. The first city became his first haven, where he became one of its defenders. Some children of Haqim talk about the king of Queen Minesh, who embraced by Cain when Haqim was lord of the armies of the first city. As a mortal, Haqim served under the king and queen, but they became evil and cruel, so he decided to cut off their heads and use their blood to bestow the embrace upon himself. Either one of these two stories could be viable origin stories, perhaps both of them being true in some form. However, I can tell you now that the second story is entirely false. I will explain why later, and remind you of it when I get to it. As for his immediate descendants, it is said it would not be until the creation and the move to the second city that Haqim would embrace his own and would act as the city's law enforcement by the insistence of Salat, who is the Salubri antediluvian. Now, some would argue against this, as no clan would have been tolerated being judged and punished by one singular clan. And yet, they let the Ventrue rule the nights and let the power go to their heads. In developing a defense for the city, Haqim created 3 castes of Assamites that still exist to this day. The Vizier caste are scholars and artisans, who are said to be the eldest among the Banu Haqim castes and represent about a third of the Assamites. The Viziers oversee political and financial events of the clan, in addition to serving as researchers and diplomats. In many ways, they are similar to the Toreador, but where the Toreador become lost in contemplation, the Viziers explode in frenzied creative activity. They suffer from an obsessive-compulsive derangement that causes them to pursue their art with the determination and deadliness of a honey badger. A Vizier in the throes of derangement will pursue it to the exclusion of all other activities. It is a curse of obsession. They are vampires who practice Auspex along with celerity and quietus, which is basically their take on blood sorcery, which is much older than the Tremere's thaumaturgy. As the eldest, you would have thought the Viziers would have ruled the clan. They didn't, and it would be a grave mistake on their part. The second caste created by Haqim were the warrior caste, who intended more as troops to fight against the clan enemies, most notably the Barley. By default, Assamites are assumed to be of the warrior caste, unless they specify otherwise. The warrior caste suffers from an addiction to vampire vitae and an aura stained by diablerie. Even if they never have actually engaged in the act of diablerie, their aura shows their bloodlust clearly. They use the disciplines obfuscate, celerity, and quietus. Who are the Barley, you ask? Well, the Barley were a clan, now a bloodline, that practiced demon worship and are quite the force to be reckoned with. When the warrior caste proved not to be enough to defeat the Barley, the sorcerer caste was created. They are the smallest caste, but the second most recognizable. Sorcerers usually need to send themselves into some sort of altered state of consciousness in order to focus their magics. This may involve consuming drugs, whirling themselves into a trance, or ritually wounding themselves, or even more exotic methods. Any use of aura perception on the sorcerer cast reveals that he practices blood magic, even if the character has no knowledge of thaumaturgy or Assamite sorcery, and even if the observer fails on the static mental challenge required to read the sorcerer's emotional state. Their disciplines consist of obfuscate, quietus, and ki, an even older form of thaumaturgy. I have encountered a couple of sorcerers who use celerity instead of ki. The only thing that united the castes was the blood of their founder. Population growth would become a huge issue for the clan that would act as its main downfall, and part of this discussion's recurring theme of the vizier's mistake of not taking charge. To be embraced as a vizier, a candidate has to demonstrate some degree of intelligence and education, both fairly scarce in the Bronze Ages. The sorcerers require even rarer knowledge and understanding of the occult and magic. As for the warrior caste, all you need to do is know how to kill. Remember this, for it will come back to bite the Assamites on the arse later on. Haqim would become disgusted with the rest of the third generation, forcing him and his kin to leave the second city. I cannot confidently say whether they left before or after the fall of the second city, or whether it was Cain that granted them their blood curse. The curse of Cain I speak of here refers to the interesting effect that occurs when they age. Their skin grows darker. Although, I am told this hasn't occurred with the more recent Ancile. Many of the younger Banu Haqim are drawn to feed on those deserving punishment. This is especially true for vampire blood, the very essence of transgression. When one of the Assamites tastes the blood of another Cainite, they find it very hard to stop. This can present many a problem as the child of Haqim integrates with the Camarilla, who tend to see the amaranth, a dated word for diablerie, as a big no-no. But I digress. Haqim and the rest of his ilk would leave the second city to their new communal haven, Alumat, a location sealed by Haqim for millennia, someone who has mastered the disciplines of stealth and silence. In short, it is bloody hard to find. Alumat would become the heart of the Assamite clan, with only a few elders having access to it at a time. All loyal members to the clan know their way to Alumat, allegedly. As for the rest of the children of Haqim, they travelled across Asia and North Africa, occasionally coexisting with other clans, despite Haqim's wishes. Haqim would abandon Alumat after a civil conflict amongst the clan within Alumat, no longer offering guidance to his clan. The numbers of the sorcerer and vizier caste numbers would not grow to as large as the warrior caste, the most extreme of which took action against their founder. Haqim would leave the clan periodically from time to time, assigning an Ekdest to guide the clan in Haqim's presence. The warrior caste took it upon themselves to be the leaders, choosing one of their own to lead the clan, thus becoming the face of the clan, resulting in many of the other clans to forget about the existence of the sorcerers and viziers. Some within the clan did not like this idea, forming the dispossessed, swelling with independent viziers and sorcerers. With the warrior castes now ruling the clan, they began to present the clan with the image that they wanted, turning the old idea of law enforcement into a caricature of itself. They were to punish all kindred for past transgressions and would conjure up a new story about Haqim. It was the second origin story I told you about earlier, the one regarding him fighting an evil king and queen. Iterations were also made to one of the paths of enlightenment to better fit this new image. The Road of Blood, the once noble philosophy that asked those to act honourably, to punish the wicked and protect the weak and innocent, to resist passion in favour of reason, became the path of blood. This encouraged these extremists to not only take a violent approach to unlife that demanded killing without hesitation or remorse, but to practice diablerie at every moment. The other castes were horrified of this turn of events, but lacked the power to do much about it. The opposing castes kept to their own devices. This would lead to many of the Banu Haqim being cursed by the Bali, which made them all more addicted to blood. In addition, many of the clan took an interest in faith of Islam that began to blossom. The warrior caste did not like their peaceful faith of humility and compassion. The sorcerers and viziers would encourage the spreading of this faith and embrace those into their numbers, introducing a lot of Islamic Assamites into the clan by the 9th century, where the warrior castes had no choice but to embrace one with such a faith also. If you think that is tasteless, then let me inform you that it took much longer for Assamites to embrace women into the clan. These additions are fairly significant, which you may have worked out if you paid attention during your history lessons when you were at school. Yes, I am talking about the crusade against the West and the Middle East. The Islamic and Jewish Assamites, wanting to protect the Holy Lands and their faiths, fought against the Christian clans. They fought the Assamite involving themselves with jihad conflict, which would act as a prelude for their conflicts across Europe, a conflict you know as the Anarch Revolt. The number of Canaanites on the other clans during this time plummeted, if not by fire and inquisitional slaughter, but by diablerie from the Banu Haqim. Remember that the children of Haqim left kindred society some 1,000 years prior to the Anarch Revolt, living in the east rather than the west that the other clans dominated. The warrior caste was the ruling caste who freely performed diablerie, not the vizier and sorcerer castes who were and still rather unknown to a lot of kindred. This meant that the Canaanites and the other clans during this time would presume that all these Assamite diablerists, and you know what they say, all it takes is for one apple to spoil the bunch. In any case, the kindred of the West were terrified of them. Yes, even in the 15th century, people of the First World feared immigrants and people of colour. With the formation of the Camarilla, they issued a blood hunt against all the Banu Haqim. This was not so successful. Remember, the children of Haqim are masters of stealth. So are another clan, Clan Nosferatu. Yes, really, one of my clans somehow found his way into Alumat, which put a great danger upon all the Assamites. It is said in ancient Assamite scriptures, that I definitely didn't steal copies of from an Assamite library, that potions of Haqim's blood exist in the wells of the city. Should the Tremere get hold of it, they could target Haqim himself and by extension, the rest of the clan. In short, they were potentially fucked. The Banu Haqim made a peace treaty with the Camarilla, providing the Tremere with a sympathetic link with the entire clan, through a process known as the Treaty of Tyre. This made the Assamite addiction to vampiric blood a potentially poisonous one that won't grant them any sustenance. I mean, obviously, poisonous. Who gains sustenance from poison? That being said, not all the Assamites were affected by this curse. The Assamites of the Sabbat, the Assamite anti-tribu, are free to drink the blood of all vampires. Because of this, they may be considered a separate bloodline from all other Assamites. This is false, for they are simply Banu Haqim free from the Tremere curse and bear no significant difference from their Camarilla cousins. And with their freedom, they also lost a lot of what made them Banu Haqim. I am told that the most potent of them rule the Sabbat from the shadows of the Black Hand. But in these modern nights, the Banu Haqim take up the role of undead assassin and are the best equipped in doing so. They accept payments of both money and blood. This might seem odd, as the Assamites could not feed on kindred blood. But one fine, gentlemanly Canaanite suggested to me that they were able to consume vampiric blood in other ways with manipulation of quietus. We both knew that this was a strange loophole with the Assamite Tremere curse, in that the Assamites could feed on other Assamite blood, so they were not totally locked into the curse. With that knowledge in mind, they could demand for Banu Haqim blood from their clients. What we would soon learn is that there was a lot of blood from all the different clans was making its way back to Alamat, where an Ul-Shagi, one of the first Assamite sorcerers and child of Haqim himself, brought rapid and dramatic changes onto the clan as a whole. This ancient Methuselah used his tremendous power to break the curse laid upon the Banu Haqim, succeeding where other sorcerers had worked for hundreds of years without any success. His harsh views and interpretations of the laws of Haqim, however, triggered various struggles and discomforts, especially with his own child Al-Sharad, which resulted in what is commonly called the Schism, where the caste was killed because they refused to not believe and worship Haqim solely. There were those who would join the Sabbat, the Camarilla, or become a large independent sect. In more recent years, the Asherah have formed an alliance with the Camarilla out of a common interest in thwarting the Sabbat's aggression in the region. As a diplomatic outcome of this alliance, the Assamites have been admitted as a member clan of the Camarilla. And as I have never mentioned them before, the Asherah is a sect dating back to our Dark Ages, whose members consist of Islamic vampires that declare their faith in Allah, which rules over Arabia and North Africa. Regardless of an alliance or sect or oneself, an Assamite worth their salt knows of, or at least attempts to follow, the laws of Haqim. The main problem with this is the differing interpretations in which of these are most important. so allow me to educate you as to what they are, to allow you to make up your own mind on what they mean, in addition to my own brief commentary that will no doubt muddy the already filthy waters. Number 1. The Law of Leadership. Honor the eldest among you, for he is to rule my house when I am absent. We discussed this earlier and know what this did to the Assamite clan. They were cursed by the West for their tyrannical approach. That is not to say that all Banu Haqim are this heated. Imagine this more as their take on the Camarilla's tradition, the accounting. Respect your elders and they will eventually respect you. Fuck them once, and they'll fuck you forevermore. Number 2. The Law of Protection. Ward the mortals from Cain's descendants and treat them with honor in all things. Many Assamites see and feel the need to treat their mortal food more than mere cattle. Some do not, for which I will get onto in a moment. Number 3. The Law of Destruction. Slay not those of the blood, for that judgment is for the elder alone. Now, it can be considered vague as to what Haqim deemed of the blood. Viziers and sorcerers see this as a means of avoiding genocide, whilst the warrior caste limit this to meaning to fellow Assamites. Some would go further than that and say that this only applies to the warrior caste themselves. Number 4. The Law of the Word. Deceive not those of the blood, for my house is founded on truth. Similarly to the previous law, this can be up for debate for whom Haqim spoke of when he meant of the blood. That said, I am told that the Assamites rarely lie to one another, but neither do they tell them the whole truth either. Which Cainite does. Number 5. The Law of Judgment. Judge those of Cain's blood and punish them should be found wanting. As with the previous 2 laws, those of blood is up for debate, but less so, as it is implied that all vampires should receive such punishment to some Assamites. There are some who would see this as a time to look back at the war with the Bali and interpret this as a commandment to fight and punish vampires who prey indiscriminately, or those who stick with such demons. If we could return to the more angry children of Haqim for a moment, many of the more aggressive, bloodthirsty Banu Haqim were and still are part of a major faction known as the Web of Knives, who I have heard described as a death cult who dislike the effect that Islam has had on the clan. The concept was embraced during the 12th century and focuses on choosing and embracing killers. Their recruits spend several years at a secret base learning every form of combat and assassination, in addition of being brainwashed into their beliefs. Those who don't end up in a grave somewhere become ghouls and focus on harnessing of their strength to dispose of supernatural beings, devoting themselves to the path of blood. After many years of training, they have one task: to assassinate an individual with only a face and a name to go with. If they succeed, they receive the embrace. Should they fail, well, I think you can guess what happens next. A faction exists in these modern nights that is attempting to re-educate and steer the children of Haqim back to its more humble path, to have them share the same mindset of whatever sect is ruling in their territory, in addition to fighting the Bali in the Web of Knives. This is the preservationist of conspiracy that was started by the Assamites Terigris and Al-Sharad. Its members are mostly viziers and sorcerers. A much smaller faction exists within the Banu Haqim ranks that consists of Jewish Assamites, who are occasionally in conflict with the Palestine Assamites. These Banu Haqim refer to themselves as the Leopards of Zion, who defend themselves and those of the same religious faith. To call the Leopards of Zion a faction is not as accurate as I would like it to be, as they are more a social group that have come and gone throughout the years. Similarly, the 1000 Meter Club has a simple thing uniting them, which is the mastery of the sniper rifle. If you can kill someone with a sniper rifle 1000 meters away, without the aid of disciplines, you may join. Yes, it really is that simple. Finally, there is the Camarilla Brotherhood, that consists of a family of Assamite ghouls created by the sorcerers of Al-Quran as a method of studying and experimenting after the Banu Haqim encountered the Assamite revenants in Europe. Why would anyone would be inspired by the fiends in such a manner is beyond me, but they exist all the same. Although, a family of virtuoso killers, now that is something to be fearful of. Usually it would take more than a sniper rifle and a family of ghouls to frighten me, but a clan Assamite, the Banu Haqim, childer of Haqim, are a clan to be feared, with or without the curse that the hypocritical warlocks cast upon them. They are all free, no longer in the servitude to other clans like how Haqim himself refused to bend the knee to the second generation. They did not need to force themselves into a role of assassination because they have to survive. They are now a clan with a purpose in the modern Knights, with the aid and backing of the Camarilla, making them all the more frightening. Despite this, the Banu Haqim carries a subtle sense of superiority. The children of Haqim feel that they have no need to resort to politics to achieve their aims. Why would they? They are assassins, and by that very definition, they remain remarkably neutral to get what they want. That is not to say that no member of the line is incapable of subtlety. Many viziers achieved great success in political fights. And remember, the Banu Haqim have access to blood sorcery as well, making them quite the rivals to the usurpers. And with 101 ways of killing you with natural and supernatural means, they are quite the force to be reckoned with. Especially if you are a Tremere. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.